This is very difficult for me. My name is Dick Rowe, and I have known Roger for 54 years. We met in 1959 at Lubbock High School. I was a senior, he was a junior, and we got wrapped into a situation during Lubbock High's Western days by a mutual friend. We had never seen each other, never met each other, didn't acquainted with each other, didn't know each other, who each other was. And we did a spoof of the Gunsmoke television series. And if you can imagine Roger as the loyal deputy Chester, I was the marshal, and the boy responsible for all this was named Dennis Cheek, who was passed about some time ago, was dressed as Kitty, the saloon owner. We thought it went pretty well. We thought it did. We were happy with it. But the bottom line is we were friends ever since. 54 years. Roger loved telling stories. My father loved telling stories. Roger knew that. And occasionally he would stop by the house. My parents, and back up a moment, my parents treated him as a third son. And he reciprocated. He'd come by the house. If you saw my dad's car there, come in. First thing my father would ask him, Roger, what are you selling out of the back of your wagon today? And he said, well, I got this gadget here. And started describing something, that got somewhere. Well, if anybody else is in the house, they might as well go ahead and go shopping or go get something to eat or whatever, because it's going to be a while. And Roger would do a lead in. My dad was in the Navy back in the 20s. Loved telling stories. Roger knew that too. So all I had to do was mention, Bill, you were in the Navy, weren't you? Well, that's where it started. So we'd come back, and you could hear my mother gasp for 5 miles every time she said that. And he knew that he was making a man happy. And he enjoyed it. He knew my father enjoyed it, and they stayed friends forever. In 1985, my brother and I went with our parents down to San Antonio. And we were at the house helping them pack up all the things we were doing. Roger shows up, comes out, gets out of his car. And he's walking up the sidewalk and he's carrying a cigar box, an empty cigar box. So my mother meets him at the door and hugs him, cheek kisses. And he hands this to her and he says, Grace, I brought you something. And she took it, opened it up, and it was empty. And she said, what's this for? She said, well, this is for everything you're going to throw away. And he wasn't all that wrong. But they all kept in touch. And that's the kind of guy he was. 54 years, some good, some bad, but that's all of us. Every one of us. So I would much rather remember the good times and not the bad times. and this will pass. Thank you.
I'm Linda Hope, and I didn't get to know Roger as long as y'all did. He was a very dear friend to me, and I'm going to miss him. I talk to him almost every day, and I wish I could experience some of the things that y'all are saying. I truly loved him.
I want to thank all of you for sharing. I know it takes a lot of courage, but what a great way to honor Roger by sharing the things that we loved about him, by sharing some of those stories. I didn't know Roger. I wish I did. But I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned about Roger as I've talked to some of you, or I've received emails from you, and I just wanted to share some of those things that I can appreciate about him. So while I think that Roger would appreciate all the beautiful flowers on the stage, and he could have an appreciation for that, he wouldn't want them in his home. And when I understand if there's ever a woman that wanted to spruce up his house with candles and flowers and greenery, he wasn't about that. He'd stop that real quick.
That's right.
I understand that he liked to wear suspenders a lot, and his grandkids loved to pop them every chance they had. I understand that Roger was in sales, like many of you have said, and he loved to show everybody his next new thing, his next new thing that he was trying to sell. He was always excited about it. And later in his life, he began doing craft shows and loved to do craft shows. Had a great time doing that. Some people would have even said that was his favorite thing to do, were craft shows. But really what it came down to is that he loved people. He loved to be social. He loved to interact with people. He just generally loved people. He loved to talk, from what I understand. And I know his family and his friends were especially dear to him. And he viewed his friends like family. I've heard on multiple occasions how generous Roger was, that he loved to help people. He loved to serve people at every opportunity. When they needed something, he wanted to help. I can appreciate that about him. And as one friend put it, he was always quick to offer a helping hand or a quirky joke. I'm disappointed I didn't get to meet Roger, but I'm thrilled to be with you today so we can celebrate his life and talk about the man that he is. You know, I learned early in life that death is inevitable. I learned that people we love are not immune to death. I've learned that no length of time can prepare you for that moment. My friends or family members would breathe their last breath. I've learned that death cannot be ignored or avoided. And when a person's death becomes a faint memory, there's another casualty to remind us of how frail we really are. And on Sunday, December 22nd, death struck again and took someone that you all love very much. Roger lived 71 years. That didn't seem like enough time, did it? No amount of years can soften the blow of losing someone you love. Why is death so hard? Why is death so hard? Why does it blindside us every time? Because it was something God never intended for us to experience. Believe it or not, God didn't create humanity with the plan of us ever having to experience aging, illness, injuries, natural disasters, or death. That was never part of his original plan. Those experiences are all a result of the fall. See, Adam and Eve, the first human beings, they messed everything up. And if it wasn't going to be them, it would be one of us. It would be somebody else. But you know the story. Adam and Eve were the first human beings, and they were in this remarkable garden called Eden for them to live in. And it was perfect. And the word Eden translates into the English language as paradise. Eden was paradise. They didn't have to farm the land for produce. Everything they had was there to enjoy without even having to work for it. God gave them permission to eat from any tree in the garden, any tree, except for the two trees in the middle of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In fact, God even issued a warning, saying that if they ate from that tree, that what would happen? They would die. Remember that story? Yet they, like many of us, they wanted the forbidden. They wanted what they shouldn't have. Satan convinced Adam and Eve that if they would eat of the tree, they would be like God. Doesn't that sound like all of us? I know none of us would say we want to be like God, but sometimes our actions, our choices say otherwise. Because we want to rule our own lives. We want to make our own choices. We don't want to have to answer to anybody. That's our human nature. We all have a tendency to be selfish and to wrongfully believe that God doesn't want us to enjoy this life. We picture God sometimes like an old, mean-spirited, judgmental teacher pointing a bony finger at us. But that's not it at all. If you read the story, God set up Adam and Eve to effortlessly enjoy this life in paradise. But the pursuit of something they were never intended to have changed everything. In Genesis chapter 3, God listed the consequences of humanity that they would have to bear now because of the sin that Adam and Eve brought into the world. In verse 19, God tells Adam and Eve that they will now return to the ground from which they were made. See, when humanity tried to dethrone God and rule their own lives, the world experienced the fall. And with it came suffering and came death. And if we're honest with ourselves, life after death is something we neglect to think about until we lose someone we love and we sit in services like this. But these moments, they cause us to think, don't they? They cause us to think about what's next, what's after this life. And while the loss of those we love is incredibly difficult, at least there's one thing that's good that comes from it, and it forces us to reflect on what's after this life. Because one day, you and I will take our last breath. It's part of the fall. And what will we find after this life? Ecclesiastes 3:11 says that He has planted eternity in the human heart. That means we all have this hope of eternity, something after this life. But I think Satan tries to distract us into believing that eternity is on this earth. And what I mean by that is that we want to live in this lifetime as if we're going to live forever. We don't. Psalm 39, 4-5 says this: Lord, remind me of how brief my time on earth will be. Remind me that my days are numbered, how fleeting life is. You have made my life no longer than the width of my hand. My entire lifetime is just a moment to you. At best, each of us is but a breath. You know, it seems like Roger thought about eternity. He thought